Okay everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're back on GT Sport and we're back with the FIA Nations round at Bathurst in the Group 3 car. So this was dominated by pretty much the Beetles. You're going to see throughout the grid, most people selected the Beetle. Now there is a very good reason for this. So you see Williams, Adams on pole position, Williams, Giorgio in P2 in the BMW M6, a rare non-Beetle car. There were some M6s and some Lexuses in this race, both good cars on the track. But there's a very good reason why a lot of people pick the Beetle as we go through the grid. Now, I didn't do the best qualifying out of the 3 races in this race. In race 2, we actually qualified in P5 with a 201.4. But this race didn't quite hook it up, you see. Starting from P8 with a 201.7, I believe it was. It wasn't quite there, the lap. I really should have been aiming to beat the 201.4, but didn't quite manage it in the 3rd race. So starting down in P8. Was a little bit disappointed with that, but it's not the worst position to be starting from, as you can see. Pretty much Beetles. I think it was actually mainly just Beetles and BMWs. I don't think there was a Lexus actually in this race, purely because of the tyre wear. Tyre wear was on timed 25, which is an insane value. You know, we're talking time, and we were racing on medium tyres. We weren't even on the hard tyres, so the hard tyres were available, but it really wasn't an option if you were starting towards the front of the grid, as we do have a Nissan GTR there. Another option for the race that a few people did choose to use, but I think by race 3 you can just see it's pretty much dominated by the Beetle. There is literally maybe 4 or 5 different cars in the grid, 15 of them pretty much at the Beetle all the way through the grid. So, and that's mainly because of the fuel consumption on the Beetle with a short shift in, where it doesn't lose too much speed if you short shift about 50%. And also due to its tyre wear, it's one of the better cars with tyre wear. So what they're doing with this new BOP, these new races with the times 25 tyre wear, is pretty much making the races very limited in terms of car choice and nations, because people are picking the cars, especially when it was fuel and tyre that were in this race. So both were very important. Most people are going to go for the car that's the best combined, and that was the Beetle. So starting from P8, obviously what I wanted to do on the first lap was try and do fuel saving, but try and do a solid lap as well. But you see, going through turn 1 didn't quite get on the power as well as I would have liked. We also started in a very awkward position, you would have seen, as the timer went down to 0. I really wish they'd do something about this, and maybe start people further back and then let it a manual start or something, as long as you don't overtake the car in front, much like iRacing does. So if you do overtake the car before the start finishing line, once obviously the main driver's gone, the lead driver, then you could pick up a penalty. But with the current system, you do get an odd track like Le Mans as well, that also has the same situation as Bathurst, and where you start with the time of the going down to 1 right on a corner for certain drivers. I do remember TR Lightning having an issue in an FIA race at that track in Group 1 a long time ago, where he spun the car because of the way it started him. But anyway, getting back on with this race, you can see we've lost quite a lot of ground to the drivers in front, which is really frustrating. I've not done a very good lap on this first lap. I've actually lost ground time, and that's not what I wanted to do. I really wanted to stay in their slipstream and give myself the ability to save fuel. So now I'm under a little bit of pressure. I'm going to have to start getting the rhythm together, because one thing about Bathurst, you really do need to get into the rhythm. You need to start getting close to the wall, get the braking right, and really get the corners nailed. Like this final corner, very important to get that corner correct, and I actually did that reasonably well then. Gained a little bit from the driver behind, but he's now going to get the slipstream, so I'm going to have to use a bit more fuel than I would have liked to defend down the straight. So you're going to see I'm revving it quite aggressively there, shifting near enough at the optimal range. Pretty much rev this close to the maximum and then change gear. But you can see he's got a massive slipstream there. I'm going to try and brake as late as possible, hold the middle of the track, hit the apex, and we managed to hold that off there. And reasonably good defensive driving there. It was fairly simple to defend. We didn't get the car long enough down the side, but look at the gap to the drivers in front. So I've lost about 1.5 seconds, nearly 2 seconds to the drivers in front, and that is really frustrating, because what you don't want to do is obviously put yourself in a situation where you've got to burn more fuel than what you would like. So at this point, I've now got to do a little bit more aggressive driving than I would have liked to try and catch up to some of them cars in front, because it's really important that I try and get the slipstream, and also I don't want to be this far back and end up coming out the pits obviously even further back if people have done more fuel saving than what I've done. So I want to get myself forward a little bit and try and rev the car a little bit more aggressively. But what you'll see is I'm just shifting just past the 50% range, so it is going to use more fuel than what I would like. And also, another point is when you're in the slipstream, you use less fuel anyway. You actually gain a fuel advantage just being in the slipstream anyway. So you're going to see now I'm pushing reasonably aggressive and trying to hook it up. I'm actually gaining on this lap, and we've pulled away from the car behind. That's because I'm obviously trying to push fairly aggressive and try and get as close back to the rear of that BMW as possible, because I did know that the BMW would be suffering on fuel anyway. So if I could get close to the BMW when we pit, there's a high chance that I'll get past that due to the fuel consumption as we go downhill. I do love watching these replay cameras at Bathurst, watching the cars going down that hill there, pushing the limits, getting very close to the wall on pretty much all the corners as we come to the final corner. It's so important to try and hook this final corner up every time, getting an early upshift into third gear and then working our way down the straight. And again, we're getting close to that slipstream now. You can see I'm probably about a second away now, just under a second. So gained quite a bit on that lap. You can see the car behind me is out of my slipstream range, so this is going okay at this point. We managed to gain quite a lot back from that previous lap where we really didn't hook it up at all, and that's what I wanted to do. But I need to get a little bit closer really to that car in front, so that it gives me the situation where I can actually start benefiting from his slipstream and short shifting and gaining the fuel back that I've just used to try and get myself back in the situation, because that is 3 laps now where I've had to drive quite aggressively that I wouldn't have. I really didn't want to do that, because 3 laps could be the difference between 5 to 10% fuel extra use. In the pit lane, you know, 5% fuel extra, maybe even like 5 to 10% extra could be the difference between up to 5 to 8 seconds in the pits. It really does. You sit in that pit lane for so much longer if you've just not saved enough fuel. As we now work our way up the long straight, uphill now into the turn 2. Very important to get close to the apex of the curb, but don't actually hit it and then get on the power. And just be careful on that curb there. You can spin the car on that outside curb there if you're just a little bit too aggressive. And again, just outside the slipstream, you can see I'm just outside the slipstream range. This is really frustrating for me because the cars in front are in the slipstream. They're all slipstreaming off each other, and I'm just not in the range to get any benefit, but I've still got to use the fuel. So they'll be able to short shift, and what I'll do is I'll show you the how much of a benefit it is further on in the race, how much more you can short shift when you're in the slipstream and how much it benefits you at this track. As we go through to the downhill section now, I really tried to hook this up as much as possible by still doing a little bit of fuel saving. I was trying to put the mixture onto like level 2 and 3 and stuff on the downhill section, as P7 has an error there, and that really helps me out because that's going to give me the opportunity to get very close to him on the slipstream now. So we might actually be able to pick this up down the straight, and you can see trying to get on the power nice and early and revving it out now a little bit aggressively. You can see I'm trying to get into the slipstream, so I didn't want to short shift at this stage because I want to get in that slipstream. And now that I'm actually in it, I could see that I was in it. I early upshifted into 7th gear and put the mixture all the way to level 6 now because I'm actually picking the slipstream up. And what you can see is, even with the early upshifting in mixture 6, we actually went into the braking zone faster than what we did with the full mixture on when we didn't have the slipstream. So that shows you the benefit. As 2 cars are off there, very close. I did panic a bit when I saw that car spinning in the middle of the track in case he ghosted. And P6 also made a mistake. The SVDR nearly lost control of his car. Decided to go in the pits on lap 3. Very brave move. I don't know what his fuel was there. Didn't actually catch that. But we're going to try and go down the inside of Rick this time. He seemed to have the issue with the other car that went off, so his tyres might be a little bit dirty. Not much grip on them. So I take advantage of that and get past Rick. But it did look like that Rick was doing a lot of fuel saving there. And then maybe deliberately let myself back past because he knew the slipstream had been gone from P4. So he's probably let myself go so he can get in the back of my slipstream. But I just wanted to keep pushing. I didn't really want to be backing off too much. I wanted to try and pick up the slipstream now of P4 up this on the uphill section if possible, although they look like they're pushing fairly aggressively there as we look at the replay camera. And again, it does look really good on GT Sport, especially when we've got these, you know, very late or early settings in races. It does visually look pretty much better than any game I've come across as we work our way up the hill, trying to stay nice and calm. We're in P5 at this point, so we've made progress from P8, but I did know that I had to use a lot of fuel for them first 3 laps, so I was quite concerned about the fuel consumption because I know that a lot of people would have been doing a lot of saving. I have been doing some short shifting, but nowhere near as much as what I would have liked, and I did have a feeling that when I get into the pits I might be slightly down on fuel compared to a lot of the other drivers in this top 8 or so. As you can just see how close this race still is, and even though we're in P5, I think all the way down to P10, extremely close. It looks like P1 and P2 have pulled a little bit of a gap there. You can see they've managed to get themselves about 3-4 seconds ahead. I think they might have, I don't know how aggressively they were driving it, but I think the BMW probably was driving a bit more aggressively on the fuel, because it's not brilliant on fuel anyway, so it's probably more advisable just to push it a little bit more with that car and just try and get yourself in the pits ahead of other cars. So you see P4 and 5 going into the corner side by side. There's contact there, knocking P3 off the track, and he's going to slide, rejoin the track, completely lose control, and again another panic moment for me, but another position gain. So we're going to go in the pits in P4. You can see the fuel consumption 52 for Adams and 41 for Giorgio, but that's because he's in the BMW. You can see myself there, paused it here on 45, much less than a lot of other drivers. That was a worry. You can see 55, 56s, 52s. So we are down on the fuel. I think without not being in, if we would have managed to stay in the slipstream for the first 3 laps, we would have been going in the pits fairly equal to what we've got in now, and that would have made such a big difference, I think, coming out of this, because 5 to 10%, some people are more than 10% more fuel. That is going to give you at least 3 to 4 to 5 minimum seconds, really, when they come out of the pits. You can see we come out of the pits in P10. We've been jumped by Rick just up ahead there. You can just see him in the distance there. So he was behind, but because he went in the pits with more fuel, he's come out a good 2 seconds, 3 seconds ahead. So in a little bit of a situation now where I've got to try and do some fuel saving as well on this next stint, because what I did at the pits, I owned the fuel a bit as well to try and make sure I come out ahead of some other drivers. But I knew that I could do that, because if we can get in a slipstream for this early stages, we see a car in front of us there that has not actually pitted yet. We got the TRL driver that jumped us also in the pits, and this is going to be a little bit frustrating for me now on the uphill section on the first lap, on your out lap with the fresh tyres, loads of grip on the tyres, and we've got a car that hasn't pitted yet, possibly on the hard tyres or the soft, I really don't know, on the medium, sorry. As you can see the difference in grip, we've just got so much more grip through the corners, and it really is, it's not his fault, but it's frustrating when you're in this situation. You've got to try and get past it as soon as possible. He nearly makes a mistake there, nearly loses control. I take advantage of that up on the inside and get past him on the earliest opportunity. Had to go for that, you saw as well. P10 did the exact same move. He wasn't going to wait around as well, and that is a risk of staying out on the worn tyres, because when you've got the faster drivers coming through on the brand new tyres, they're going to take advantage of any situation there that they can come across. So I did that reasonably well, nice and cleanly through the inside, and got that position done, and just about stayed far enough ahead of the car behind, it looks, to not have to worry about him overtaking into this corner, although he is going to pick up a massive slipstream by the looks of it. Is he going to be able to make a move into this corner? I'm not sure if he'll go for it. Let's have a little look on the replay camera how close that is into the braking zone. He's going to have a little look down the right hand side, but he's come from too far back. I've got the inside there, and again I can just cover that off, and then another lap of defending that corner. But all this defending and getting stuck behind drivers that hadn't pitted yet has lost me a little bit more time. You can see I lost about 1.5 seconds on that lap. That lap should have been a really good lap, out lap. It should have been all about putting a good time in to get yourself ahead of any people that are pitting on the end of lap 5. But that situation didn't quite work out for me there. We got stuck behind the driver. We're up into P8 now, so back to where we started the race on. But we've got drivers in front. I think that some of the drivers that haven't pitted yet, it looks like there's some people on a no-stop strategy, and there's some drivers that I think might have pitted a lap earlier. I'm not too sure. We'll have to see how this race progresses now, going up the hill. And you can see the driver behind me, again, the PR1 driver, getting the slipstream up the hill, but again, not close enough to make a move in the braking zone. So just trying to hold him off at the moment whilst doing fuel saving. You can see I actually started to do reasonably good now with the fuel. I started to bring it back to where I needed to be, but I still knew that I had to do a little bit more. So if there was an opportunity where he got really close in the slipstream and looked like he was going to make the move, I pretty much decided I was going to let him go rather than defend it too much, and then try and use his slipstream to bring my fuel back in line a bit, and then I can go for a move when possible. As we see, I think the driver in front of us now has either pitted earlier than us, or is on a no-stop strategy on them hard tyres. So is this going to hold me up even more? And also, is it going to cause a situation where the driver behind is going to get an easy pass, not even on the straights? And one thing I didn't want to happen is to get stuck behind this driver, the driver behind jump both of us, and then I'm stuck behind this driver still. So you've got to be weighing all these things up in your head, and thinking about how the best way to go about the situation is when you've got drivers that may be struggling on tyres or may have pitted early. They've still got reasonable tyres, but just that lap extra, 25 laps, that's the equivalent of. As you see, I decided to just let him go past it. I put the fuel mixture all the way up to, I think, level 4, 3, something like that, and let PR1 go through and slot back into his slipstream. So now what I'm going to be able to do is just watch the short shifting, I'm able to short shift and not really lose any time. So you're going to see going very, not even doing 50% shifts some of the time, and not really losing any lap time. So have a little look now as we go over the start finishing line, and not a particularly great lap, but it would have been a much better lap if I didn't let him through and obviously put the mixture down. But this is why I did this now. So on the main straight, you can see early up shifting into 4th gear, again just before the 50% range on that red bar, shifting into 5th and then 6th gear, and then now I decided to put the mixture up to 7 and not even go for this pass. You're going to see he pulls over to defensive, so I just put it into 7th gear, mixture into the like leanest setting, and just letting take a compromised entry into that corner, and I'll just carry on a normal line and save fuel behind him, because we've got that car in front, P7. So if I can just stay in this slipstream and try and get a double draft at some point, there might be an opportunity for me to get past both of these if I can play it very well and use a bit of tactical driving as we work our way up the hill again. Just sitting in, look how close we're able to sit in this slipstream. So this is what I wanted to be able to do on that first stint, was just follow a driver really closely. Just frustrating that we just lost the slipstream pretty much right from turn 1. So you can see now we're managing to stay in that slipstream with massive short shifting. You can just see no real loss of speed. We're staying in there nice and calm. Also, what you tend to do, because you're short shifting and driving much smoother and just using the slipstream, braking a little bit earlier, you look after your tyres even better. It's one thing Lightning's pretty much taught me, is just use your slipstream to help your tyres, because what you do is you sit in the slipstream, you brake that much earlier, then you just use the slipstream to tow you back on and just really take care of your tyres using 80% braking and stuff as we now go down the straight. And this is a situation that I can see could cause me problems if I get stuck behind P7. So what I decided to do was boost P7 here, boost him along there so that P8 cannot get past him, and then I go up the inside again of the PR1 drive and get myself up a position. But then P7 runs a little bit wide, he's struggling on them tyres. I didn't want to accelerate past him then, just in case he ran a bit wide. I wanted to give him plenty of space, and then I make that move on the inside. So some really good tactical driving there, because I've now got that P7 position, and the driver that I'm fighting, the PR1 driver that's got the better tyres, is now stuck behind P8. So I need to try and push a little bit now, but obviously still look after the fuel, and bear in mind that I don't want to use too much fuel as we go up the hill. And you can see he's still stuck behind him, but he's going to get a slipstream up this hill now. He's going to probably be able to make a move up the hill. You see he's got past him, but that's given me a little bit of a comfort buffer now going up into turn 1, so he's not going to be able to get a move on me here now. I can just take my normal racing line, keep the short shifting going, and the fuel started to get in a better situation now. It was pretty much where I wanted it to be. So at this point in the race, we've gained a position from our starting position, which is never a bad thing in a top split lobby, as you know, with the quality of drivers that were in this race. We've got likes of Org, Tsusu, Williams Adams, Williams Giorgio, Tijani was in here. It was, again, if you gain from your starting position, normally you've done a good job in the race. So, you know, very rare that people make mistakes, although there was that little mistake at the start where we saw 2 drivers spinning out. I don't know what happened to SVDR. I think possibly that early stop really compromised his race, possibly getting stuck behind traffic, maybe put the harder tyre on to try and do a longer stint on that stint there, and maybe got stuck in traffic, not being able to pass him without the extra grip. As we see, the driver behind me there had a massive moment on the downhill section and completely lost the chance of getting in my slipstream now. So I'm in quite a nice position now of just in P7. Drivers in front, we've got a car no stopping in front of us. I think it was a TRL, possibly TRL or Org. I'm not sure if he actually pitted or not. Maybe he pitted but had saved a lot of fuel on the first stint. I'm not quite sure, but it looks like they're battling the 2 TRL drivers, and I've got no one behind me, so I'm in a nice situation. But you can see up in the distance, a driver's gone off. It looks like it was Org that just outbraked himself, or maybe there was contact with the other TRL driver, and that's really put him in this compromised situation now, because he's got a lot of dirt on them tyres. He's going to be struggling for traction through this corner. You're going to see it now, trying to get on the power and just look at the car. It's not got the grip. I'm going to try and go down the left hand side. I think he possibly put the I'm not sure if he put the hazards on to let me through them, I'm not too sure, but he didn't fight the position. I go up the inside. Possibly he was on a no-stop strategy, because he didn't seem to have much grip at all as he goes through that final turn 1 and up the hill for the final lap. He looks like he's fuel saving a real amount. Maybe he fought it with TRL to Susu. As you can see, he had a penalty there. So that's jumped me up by 2 places and put me into P5 again. So now all I have to pretty much do is just hold on to this position for a fairly solid race. It's going to be over 2k points if I can hold on to this. We've got Org behind us. but I was fairly confident being able to stay ahead of Org. It looks like he was doing fuel. I don't know if he was doing fuel saving, or I really don't know whether he had no stopped or not. I don't know if anyone saw it, the pit stop, whether you know, let me know in the comment section if you've seen him pit, or Org himself might let me know if he actually did a no stopper here. But he definitely seems to be struggling with grip, so my guess is he's doing a no stopper because he's falling back massively and seems to be struggling with the tyres and the grip. So in a comfortable position now, because now Org's going to hold up any chance that the PR1 driver is going to have coming back through. And a fairly solid race for myself. You know, we can see Rick up ahead, I think 4 or 5 seconds in the distance. Probably gained most of that during the pit stop phase through being able to save that extra fuel for them first 3 laps. So that was, for me, it was a bit frustrating that I had to do that, because on them first 3 laps when I had to push, but it kind of has worked out in this race because we had to push. We're now in P5. We did drop back a bit. We got a little bit lucky with cars making mistakes, but the main aim of this race was starting from that like P8 was just to keep it clean, keep ourselves on the track, don't pick up any penalties, and see what result we get. And you can see there Rick just in the distance, about 3-4 seconds ahead, and like I say, I think most of that was gained in the pit stop phase. So we've done a reasonable job with some very fast drivers at this track. I do like Bathurst. I do tend to pick up quite good results in Group 3. As we come through to the final corner, we've got the fuel now just about there to get to the end. I think I judged it pretty much perfect, like 1% left. We go over the line and we pick up a very solid P5 in this race, and 2,200 points. I think it was actually enough points to increase my overall nations points by, I think it was about 7. Nothing massive, but you know, every points count. As we have a little look there, you can see we actually got rid of our 2,222 and replaced it with 2,229. So we're not doing too bad. We're in P4 in the UK, P38 or something, or P35 overall. Doing reasonable. I think there's chances to pick up some big points again throughout the season. So if we can keep picking up the odd 2.6, 2.7, we might be able to get ourselves in the top 20 drivers. Well, we should be able to. But again, the issue that we've got is the split 2 drivers and split 3 drivers picking up 2.5, 2.6, 2.7k points in their lobbies. So it is a situation where it doesn't make much sense that you're finishing in the top 5 in the top split, but you're outside the top 30 overall in the Nations Championship. But there you go. That's GT Sport at the moment. I'm sure they'll sort it out. They've got to do something about it. So let's just see what happens. Anyway, thank you again for watching the video. I do appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you give it a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. Also, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit that subscription button and also hit the notification button so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks again for watching, everyone.